Coming to you from sunny California and the Great White North. Get ready. We are breaking down the obstacles on the Armchair Ninja Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Armchair Ninja Podcast. It is Thursday, February 2nd, 2017. My name is Rich, and joining me to cover Wipeout UK, I would say, is Bijan. How you making out?
Dude, you beat me to it. That was exactly what I was going to compare it to. Let's just say I came in here with fresh eyes. I had no idea what I was getting myself into with Ninja Warrior UK. Let's just say I was not prepared.
I'm sorry. Anybody from the UK that loves this show, or anybody from America that loves this show, I'm sorry, but I think this is going to be not a very pleasant experience for you, as I don't think either one of us really enjoyed this very much. And now we've committed to covering the whole season. This should be very interesting.
Our listeners hate us, dude. Like I think I was literally texting you halfway through the episode saying, kill me now.
It's so different. I really didn't expect the differences. And we'll get into that, I guess, before.
Hey, God, one thing, guys, is it's not going to be a complete hate fest. I'll give you an addendum before we get into it, because I kind of understand why it's like this. But, yeah. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. I didn't hate it completely either. But we will be covering Ninja Warrior UK. We will be doing just the first episode of the season. I think we'll have to condense some of the other ones into future episodes. And we'll be covering Celebrity Apprentice again, give you an update on how Matt Iseman's doing. We'll be doing the National Ninja League. That's GCA and Shinobi Fitness National Ninja League qualifiers. And some general ninja news. So let's jump right into it. We're both anxious to kind of talk about it. We are and we aren't, I think, because we haven't discussed it outside of the podcast. So I other than the text saying "kill me" and mine saying "yeah," basically the same thing back. I don't even know where to start with this thing.
What'd you think?
I don't even know what to say. So really, it's summed up as it isn't even really American Ninja Warrior. It is so removed from what I was expecting.
Let's put it this way. Of the Ninja Warrior competitions that we're covering in this episode, guys, one was viewed by 4 million people. The other was viewed by less than 4,000 people. And the one viewed by far less than 4,000 people was, I'd say, 100 times more difficult. and genuinely more enthralling. Yeah, but one thing I have to say before we get into the just complete burial of this show is I understand when it comes to the audience, when it comes to the UK audience and everything, a lot of the shows are a lot more hokey, a lot more, I guess, fun, cheesy, that type. So I understand we are coming from a perspective where we're so far and used to literally over a decade of watching a far more serious product when it comes to this sport and everybody taking it extremely seriously, where this show is clearly going for the more fun, hokey aspect of the sport, very much in the same vein as Wipeout. The issue that I have with it more than anything else, because if that's what they're going at, is fine with me. You know, everything doesn't have to be exactly the same. I don't need everybody to be super serious. But if you're going to go in the vein of Wipeout, you need to go all the way in. I always appreciated Wipeout by the fact that, hey, it's not really about who wins on the show. It's about enjoying the fun, knockdowns, the fun, as you said, wipeouts. They've got the mud. They've got these things where you're getting punched in slow motion. They're flying all over the place. With this show, they're trying to do very rudimentary, easy obstacles in the vein of American Ninja Warrior, and they're trying to be hokey, but they're just not very funny. They're not really giving these huge splashes or mini obstacles that have opportunity for the fun wipeouts. So they're trying to make a fun product without much of the opportunity to have fun. So it's kind of in a mishmash of the middle, and it's a little hard. But I'll go in more into that. I don't want to completely skew your opinion of it, Rich. So overall, what did you think about this show? Yeah,
I didn't appreciate it for the most part. I loved in a weird way. I loved the soundtrack of it. It had the best soundtrack, I think, of any A&W show or any Ninja Warrior show we've seen. Lots of big hits, little montages and stuff. I kind of liked those. I liked that they featured 2 to 3 times the number of athletes we normally see in an episode in a much shorter time frame. So in a 45-minute episode, they managed to show, I think practically everybody that ran the course, because they did little montages of them falling and things like that. So I appreciate it from that aspect. There were certainly some ups. And I think part of the reason we're not quite as hooked into it is we don't know the announcers. So the announcers were Ben Shepherd, Rachel Hughes, and Chris Kamara, and I don't know who any of those people are, and I don't really care, especially after listening to this. They definitely didn't draw me in. As a matter of fact, I would go so far as to say that the Chris Kamara, I believe, is the one that was annoying the heck out of me through the entire episode, much the same way that I know at least one of our listeners is annoyed by Matt and Akbar. So I have a lot more sympathy for them now, why they watch the show muted, or when they do have to watch something that has them.
This is very interesting because I didn't mind the announcers at all. My biggest issues weren't about the announcing in the slightest. And what was interesting that you said is you enjoyed the fact that they showed all the competitors in a very quick motion, but I actually have to kind of dissent from that opinion, and I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm actually going to praise American Ninja Warrior with their vignettes, because I must say this show really illustrated the fact that you can't just see a bunch of competitors going on a course with no story, no connection to them at all. It was just person after person running this course. One thing I'll praise about the show, by the way, is they actually have quite amazing production values. I quite actually enjoyed this whole course was actually inside a stadium or something like that, like it was indoors. And initially I was like, that's kind of weird, but I actually enjoyed that because the audio aspect of the crowd and the excitement and everything, it definitely showed a whole lot more than you see on American Ninja Warrior. And I liked the lighting of the course. Overall the course seemed much more viewable, better lit, and that made it for more exciting. But once again, these were very rudimentary obstacles that, if you were to see it on even a National Ninja League, you would kind of laugh and be like, this is ridiculous. This is too damn easy.
Well, so I'm going to interrupt you a little bit because I don't think that's fair. I mean, it was definitely much easier than we've seen on American Ninja Warrior, but I would put it on par with Team Ninja Warrior. It really was virtually a Team Ninja Warrior course.
Team Ninja Warrior, I agree with that completely, man. But the thing is that Team Ninja Warrior really isn't about if you can complete the course. It's about how fast you can complete that course. And I understand that this show has the time frame of who will complete it faster or the fastest. But guess what? Out of all the competitors on this episode, only 10 made it, which was their cutoff. So clearly it's more about the course. This would be fun. It would be cool if they were dangling from really high and they make a big splash if you're going to make it fun and goofy. But they didn't. So it's just they're trying to make something wacky out of a very rudimentary course where you're just not going to get that same opportunities. They have to choose one way or the other. They can go serious and make it harder, or they can go goofy and have to go full-on Wipeout, MXC, what other types of goofy obstacle courses there are. You have to choose one or the other, because right now you have a very plain course while trying to make it goofy, and it just makes it really not as engaging. It kind of makes it boring.
Yeah, I did not care about, and to circle back to my praise for them showing everybody wasn't as a viewer, I guess, to be fair. I was actually thinking from a competitor, I would be very happy because I would have a good chance of being shown. And if my friends and family were going to be watching, then they'd get to see me on the show. From that perspective, I think that's great. As a viewer, were 100% right. It is not engaging. I don't care about any of these people that I see falling. There was literally only one run through the whole thing where I actually got very involved and was very excited to see whether the person could make it or not.
If you didn't have your notes, would you be able to remember their name?
Hell no. No, I have no idea. I have to skim through here even right now to figure out who that was again. let me run down. I feel like we've kind of jumped all over the place here. Let me run through the they're very standard obstacles, so you should be able to picture most of these very easily. The quintuple steps, of course, the log grip, the floating tiles, which if you can't picture them offhand, imagine like just a 1 or 2 square foot block floating on some elastic rubber bands, right? You got to jump across 4 of them to make it across. The jump hang with ropes. So basically you trampoline into 2 ropes to swing over to a cargo net. And then the swing circle, which was the only one that I hadn't really seen before, but it looked very simplistic. Really, it was just 3 rings, I believe, that were hanging, and you would jump to the first ring and you would just kind of swing it back and forth to make the transition to the next one and make your way across. And then the warped wall, which was shorter than, it definitely looked much shorter than we see in ANW and maybe even in Team Ninja Warrior. I didn't do the conversion.
I'm glad you caught that too. I was very curious if maybe I was just seeing it and maybe I was wrong, but it definitely seemed a lot shorter.
You would think I would have known this. It's 4.25 meters, I think they said, and I, even though I'm Canadian, I didn't really do the conversion to figure out what that actually works out to.
Well, I'm American, so good luck with that when it comes to me.
Yeah, it's definitely shorter. There's no way that's not shorter.
Yeah. So with all that said, guys, I have to say at least there were 2 competitors that I enjoyed. I'm not even going to attempt to try to remember them, but in the notes we'll go over it. They both completed the course. But I have to say, we're keeping it vague, but I have to say, I'd say 85% of the runs that we saw were really goofy. I mean, there was a guy that's like a firefighter, but he's in this this frog suit, and he's just hopping up to it, and they're playing it up so hardcore, like, oh, this is the funniest thing on the planet. I'm like, oh boy, this is just not funny.
Yeah.
It's so hard because we got such a small, group of serious athletes and competitors on this show. So it's very different from American Ninja Warrior, where you have these people with all these accolades. And I can't really give them, oh, well, it's just everyday people, because even on American Ninja Warrior, we had everyday people, especially in the earlier seasons, and it wasn't like this, man. So once again, I'm criticizing it a lot because I'm coming from a biased perspective of watching this sport from a more serious standpoint for so long. But I tried seriously hard to put myself out of that position and go to more of the audience's perspective, where maybe they're just used to this more goofy type of hammed up sport. But even with that, I still had a hard time being engaged with these competitors. And my only hopes is maybe this is just the first episode, the first stage, and later on in the show it gets a lot more serious. And I still believe that might be the case. We get through all these hammed up, goofy, stage 1 competitors, and then when we get to stage 2 and 3, that's when stuff gets serious. I'm holding out hope because, this is Survive. This is the 3rd season, so something's got to be engaging, man.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's kind of like closer to American Idol would be, where the first few episodes are all about the most terrible singers you've ever heard, and you kind of get a hint of a few of the good ones that make it through. And really, once we get through these preliminary heats, we'll get to see the best of the best trying, some more difficult obstacles. So I do have some hope for it as we go along. And this is just Heat 1. This isn't stage 1 of Mount Midoriyama. It's kind of a weird layout. I'm trying to figure out how it all works out. They do have multiple heats, so it's almost like the qualifiers we have. And I think one thing we have to keep in mind is that it is kind of like the qualifiers that we have on American Ninja Warrior. They're not terribly difficult most of the time. It is just 5 obstacles. It does.
The qualifiers in America are much more difficult. Come on, man.
Yeah, I don't know.
If this was a qualifying course in Venice, people would laugh.
But season 3, I really don't, or I guess it'd be more season 4. If you look at what season 4 had for qualifiers, I'm willing to bet it's not that far off.
I can't argue that because I don't remember, but I will agree this is early on, and that's definitely a point that I'm trying to also consider. Yeah. That it is early on, and you do have a good point there, So
skimming through here, I don't even know how much to go over this. It is so crazy. We had, they had a big montage of people playing, I Can't Feel My Face When I'm With You. Like, I don't even know what to do with this information. It was just so much. I really don't know. Don't worry, be happy. Like the lay your hands on me montage. There looked like a lot of rope burn in this episode. Was it just me, or did it look like a lot of people were going to have very sore hands the next day?
I don't know. I was kind of just like glazed over.
Okay, so
once again, it didn't speak. Like I was trying, but I was so not into it.
Right. So they're playing Bon Jovi, Lay Your Hands on Me, and a montage of people not quite catching the rope. And I thought that was actually pretty entertaining to watch people keep trying. And then the music made it more entertaining. And then they tricked me. It was refreshing because as the song was winding down of all these people failing, it was still playing in the background, and they had Christina Harrison take the field. And she actually made it to the cargo net. It was like all these people that kept missing and missing and missing and missing. And then she made it. And she ended up falling on the last ring. She was doing really well. And that was the only time through the whole episode that I got excited. I was really hoping she was going to make it through. And so that's the one person. Christina Harrison, you were the one engaging person in this whole episode for me. And I'm really sad that you didn't get to move on, because now I have to hope for next week to have somebody for me to root for.
Congrats, Christina. I was actually really enthralled with a gentleman named Tanzil Umrani.
Yeah.
Tanzil Umrani. Yeah. He was actually quite fun. First of all, just the obvious thing, he looked very different from all the other competitors. Yeah. I mean, it's UK. Most of the competitors were white. We had like one black guy. All of a sudden, there's this... I don't know, I think he's Indian, but, it could be Middle Eastern or something. But he definitely stood out, And not just that, he definitely raced, like... when you have competitions like this, where you have a bunch of goofy competitors, it definitely stands out a whole lot more when you see a competitor that actually knows what the heck they're doing on these obstacles. And he definitely seemed like somebody that's, not completely new to trying out obstacles. So he was flying through it. He was really engaging. His look was great. I actually really enjoyed what I saw from him. And... yeah, I think he was the first competitor to make it up. If not, he was definitely the fastest. So overall, it's kind of like watching American Ninja Warrior, and it's like this new guy just blowing through the course, and everybody's like, whoa, where did this guy come from? It was kind of like that. He was really fun.
Yeah, it was a very much like those inspiring runs that they made fun of so well on Saturday Night Live. Imagine they took the inspiring story out and then ran 90% of the people through like that. That was basically what we watched. So it was a little hard to watch at times. And we're getting a little repetitive here. You get the impression. So we will keep covering it. I'm hoping we haven't offended everybody too much with our kind of ripping on it a bit. And like I said, we do have some hope for it to improve as they move on to the semifinals. The format is a little different. There's only 10 people moving on from this heat to the semifinals, and then we'll have some more over the coming heats. We'll probably wrap up a few episodes into the next one and over the next few weeks to try to get caught up a bit. And if you disagree with us, definitely let us know, right? You know how to reach out to us. We'll give you it again at the end of the episode if you don't. But we're going to move on, I think. I think we covered that.
I mean, at the end of the day, all I have to say is it's my job to be honest, and I can't just sugarcoat something just because some people might be offended. It's like I have to give my honest opinion, and I wasn't really enthralled with this episode, but I still have hope that it's going to get better. I just think that this might be a product, as you said, of first episode, get all the goofiness out, and I really liked your comparison to American Idol. I think that's very apropos.
Okay, so let's move on to our good friend Matt Iseman, who is doing Celebrity Idol. And kicking some...
Celebrity Idol, huh?
Celebrity Idol, It is Celebrity Apprentice, of course, that Matt is on. And he's doing a fantastic job.
We had a little scare this episode, though, man.
A little bit. I really was pretty confident, I think. I don't really... I think he has definitely earned a slip-up. And he barely had one.
You could say that. He's so making it to the finals, it's not even funny. But
yeah. So I mean, and I called it. I got to say, I called it. Carson, he had a slip up last week, and I said all he needs is one more slip up, and he will be gone. And we did get that this episode to jump ahead to the final here. But
hey, I called it too. Leslie is bye-bye.
Yeah, I guess I was wrong on that part. So
But yeah, let's go from the beginning.
Yeah, let's start off the beginning. So they had a challenge with the Clippers. Steve Ballmer, he was like head of Microsoft for a long time, but he's also the owner of the Clippers. So they had to come up with like a big promo. They had to get the crowd really engaged. They kind of had to promote the Clippers, and they had to design and hand out T-shirts. So Leslie, made perfect sense, of course. Leslie being a big basketball star, one of the best female players ever, from what we've heard, and Ricky were the project managers. Did that surprise you? Did you think that was a good choice?
No, I thought they were both perfect for the role because they're both athletes. Obviously, we could have saw Layla Ali also take on the thing, but they said Layla Ali was definitely under the weather, and we'll get into that more. But it definitely seemed like she was checked out this when they brought it up. So I was fine with it, and honestly, Ricky is kind of just like watching paint dry. He's just nothing for me.
Really?
So,
I was like,
yeah, dude's just so boring. I can't. So, I was actually, it's the first time ever I was rooting for Leslie to win, just so I can just not see Ricky anymore.
You know what's funny?
I love the dude outside of the show, but he's just so boring on this show.
You know what's hilarious is this was the first time I was really engaged with Ricky. I really thought he was doing a great job. And you know what the sad part is I'm thinking the whole time is like, oh, that's exactly what I would do. Ricky's like nailing it. This is how to do this. And yeah, he totally did not do a good job. And it's like, oh, this is where I would have failed because I think he approached it smartly, but I guess it was overly cautious. So, he pulls in, he's got a good team, for this whole thing.
He's got a great team.
Like he's got like an all-star team.
And for everybody listening, the deck couldn't be more stacked against Leslie because you literally have Carson and Boy George, who's never even probably seen basketball. I think like a running joke is that Carson kept referring to Leslie as a hockey player and a soccer player. Like he would never say basketball player. And they didn't know anything about basketball or sports or anything. And then you have Ricky's team, which is like kind of like a who's who of like all like the experts of it. You have Matt Iseman, who's like the perfect hype man. You have Layla Ali, who's obviously into sports. You have Brooke Burke, who knows graphic design. And another element of this challenge is graphic design, designing a shirt and everything. So he has like the deck stacked. He is like got the perfect hand. I don't know what happened, man, but
so the way they approached it, let's spell it out here. This is what Ricky did, and I thought it made perfect sense, right? He gave each of them a task, like, hey Matt, I want you to go research Steve Ballmer and figure out, like, because that's who they're selling it to ultimately, right? They've got to convince him of the product. So Matt starts doing research on him, and he's like, you know what? I need you to figure out the t-shirt design and figure out what they've used in the past for designs and get an idea of what they like. And then Layla, what do you have her do again? Whatever. So he basically had to do a bunch of research, and then he kind of went from there, and everything was very logical. I thought, Matt found this video of Steve Ballmer just losing his mind, like a very funny video that actually I should link in the show notes. I want to go find the original.
This was insane. I can't believe this guy is a multi-billionaire.
Yeah.
I can't even do justice of what this guy was doing. He was literally freaking out, just incomprehensibly, like yeah, and all this stuff. I don't
like Tom Cruise jumping the couch,
insane.
Like level of excitement, like really just
like beyond ridiculous. And the thing is that Matt Iseman thought it would be a good idea to kind of hone in on that, go super crazy out there and use a quote that he said where he said, "I love this company," and Matt Iseman was going to change that to say, "We love this team," which was a good idea, but I was kind of, I don't know if Steve Ballmer looks back at that and is kind of embarrassed, and I think he might, because when Steve Ballmer came in and Matt Iseman kind of demonstrated it for him, Steve Ballmer was not happy, dude.
Yeah.
He was like...
They should have changed it. They should have changed. That was my only thought was, when you saw the look on his face, you really should have reconsidered what you were doing.
Mm-hmm. It's like, you know, the most embarrassing moment for me of this podcast. I don't know, but like a super dumb quote I made or something, and somebody just reminding me of it. You know, it's like, oh yeah, that's a great way to flatter me.
I actually didn't take that at all. I really feel like just judging by his later comments, I don't think that he was embarrassed by it. I think he didn't find that Matt committed to it enough. He didn't get the excitement in it that he needed. Like,
yeah,
it really was weird. I'm like, really? Matt was just flat out with like just pure adrenaline and excitement trying to get that crowd going.
Super charismatic. Yeah, I think the one thing is that Matt Iseman was really good at defending himself right after. And I forget the quote that Steve Ballmer said, but I think he said, was it senseless? What did he say, man? He said something really rude to Matt.
He kind of did, but basically it boiled down to that they weren't creative and they basically plagiarized him and didn't do a very good job of it.
Yeah, but in a very rude way. And Matt was very good in responding.
Oh, fantastic.
Although not to his face and saying basically, Ballmer doesn't know me and I don't think he gets just what I'm trying to say.
Oh, you don't mean later. You mean when he came in to see the preview of it.
Yeah, initially, yeah.
Yeah, he, oh, jeez.
Either way, I think that would have been a good time for Matt to probably think about his approach to this task. But they followed through with it. I think, you know, it was a good idea. I question if maybe they should have demonstrated it for Ballmer and beforehand. Now, that wasn't necessarily the reason they lost this task, but it did create some drama in terms of Matt Iseman's prospect of the show. Now, we got to move forward, man, because we're, I think, harping like way too much on this. But basically, they screwed up in almost every other aspect of this thing. They're supposed to design a shirt, and they just tape this shirt up like all the way, and I don't know why. And whereas the other team basically handed an the untaped shirt to Arnold Schwarzenegger and Ballmer, and it made a huge difference because Arnold Schwarzenegger was explaining that it took him like so long to untape this, and I think he hammed it up a little bit, but still he made a good point with that. And they made various mistakes. Now, before we get to the boardroom, was there any other things you want to? Oh, one thing I have to say: Leslie Jones never should rap again.
No.
Oh my God.
Never. No. That was actually one of the few things I did want to say about the other team. I actually thought that they did pretty terrible, especially by getting Leslie to rap. But I had to admit the song was kind of catchy. So what they did, Leslie actually did a pretty good job given what she had. She had Carson and she had Boy George. So she asked Boy George to come up with a song, right? Like an anthem type song to get the crowd hyped up, right? Rather than getting, like, they're not going to go out there and be athletic. There's not going to be anything that they can really demonstrate or do. They're not really, I mean, Carson can do pretty good for helping to get the crowd going, but he doesn't have the energy and he just doesn't have that same vibe that Matt does to get a sports crowd kind of riled up. So she worked with what she had, and Boy George made a pretty catchy tune. And even Steve said when they go to the boardroom that I actually think we might make some use of that. Like it is really good chanting kind of song. It kind of gets you into it.
Yeah, just without the rap part.
Without the rap. Take the rap out or get someone who can rap to do it, because Leslie, I don't know why they got her to do that.
I mean, just before we go, I mean, it was so painful. It's like, my name's Bijan. I am the man. I covered Ninja Warrior. And you are, I don't know, a voyeur. It's so bad. Like, it was said like that, guys. It had no flow, no swag, no nothing. It was just, it was painful.
It was just bad. It was just all around bad. And I don't think anyone would have found it funny or engaging. It wasn't even ironically bad enough. It was just bad. But here's the thing. I agree with her decision not to be shooting the basketball. What do you think of that? Because they brought that up more than once, that they thought that where she is like one of the best female basketballers of all time. She should have been out there like shooting threes or something, which I think is a terrible idea.
Yeah, it's kind of, I think that was made up drama because honestly, like the worst thing you could ever do as somebody with a prestige of her is go out there and whiff a shot. Now, with that said, I do agree that maybe she should have at least had a basketball. You could at least dribble the ball, show some dribbling skills. Nobody's there just clamoring for her to shoot the ball and get a swish, right? But at least she can dribble it around, do some jukes, do some switch ups, things like that. But she didn't do anything. She was just there. And honestly, if I was in the crowd, I might have not even known that she was a basketball player other than her height and her name,
Yeah.
She didn't do anything to just show off that she is one of the top female basketball players of all time. And that was definitely unfortunate. So she could have done something, but I do agree they were a little hard on her, being like, "Why didn't you shoot a three, man? Like, come on!" It's like,
yeah, like that's too much. Like, no one's going to sink that under those circumstances. I don't think that's a reasonable expectation, really. But yeah, I think that's a good fair point. She should have at least dribbled one out and passed it off to. I think they had some people there that were there to demonstrate. They probably had trampolines and all that business going on there that they could do something.
Yeah.
So she could have passed it over to them to do it.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I think both teams did absolutely pretty terribly. Like they're both awful. But I will say, I think they made up some drama also with Matt Iseman. They were quite hard on him in the boardroom, specifically Steve Ballmer, and we already covered a lot of it. They weren't very happy with how he kind of plagiarized or whatever you want to say. I feel like it was more of an homage to Steve Ballmer and everything. But they were a little hard on him. But even with that said, it was the first time where people were hard on him. And guess what, guys? He still wasn't brought back. By the way, their team lost. Surprise, surprise. But out of the 4 people on that team, he was the only one that was safe. And that says a lot. He is the only competitor on this show that has never gone back to the boardroom. And he's the only competitor that has... No, Brooke Burke, I think, is also joining him now at this point, to have completed 2 tasks. So he is in very, very good standing overall. And you have to assume, even if he messes up, like, even if he takes on project manager, which I don't think will happen because I feel like Layla Ali has to next episode... even if he takes on project manager next episode and loses, I still think he's safe. So I have to assume that he's going to make it into the finals. Now, the curious question for you, we'll get into who might join him later on. I forget. We have a whole nother half.
Yeah.
Man, we need to plow through this, dude. You go ahead.
So, Ricky ended up losing, or ended up getting terminated. He was the project manager, and I think that was probably fair.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is what it is. He lost twice as project manager, so he was terminated.
So boring.
So they moved on to Gold's Gym. They had 4 pieces of equipment to choose from QVC. I love.
Hang on. Did you notice how ecstatic and comfortable Arnold Schwarzenegger was at the Gold's Gym?
Oh yeah.
Like they show up and Arnold Schwarzenegger all of a sudden is all jovial, walking in. He's all excited. He's just talking like so much more happy. It was kind of like Matt Iseman at Universal Studios, the Harry Potter land. You could just tell this was his element.
Yeah.
It was ridiculously like just clear. This dude was happy.
Yeah, Arnold was much more engaging and much better in this episode overall, I thought.
Yeah, he was great. We'll go into it later, but man, poor Arnold's nephew, man.
He really likes to pick on him. But yeah, I love the challenge. This is probably my favorite challenge they've done. Because a lot of it's just making brochures and PowerPoints and stuff and getting crowds hyped. It's boring. I really don't care about most of the stuff they've had to do. This one was cool. I like this because it's a very quantifiable thing. They had 4 pieces of equipment from QVC, the home shopping network, for those that don't realize what the heck it is. And they had to figure out which of those 4 items they would sell, and they would have 8 minutes to sell it live from Muscle Beach. So there was a lot, there was presumably be a strategy in figuring out which piece to sell, who's going to sell it, what's your price point going to be. I liked that whole aspect of it. It really took a lot of strategy to figure out the best item and the best strategy. It's definitely my favorite competition they've had. And I liked how they already had ins, right? Carson and Brooke have both been on QVC before. They've done a lot of pitching on there. They knew how it worked and they knew what items to pick. It was really cool to see that kind of background on the whole QVC thing.
Yeah, not only that, there were various elements to it. Not only did you have very different forms of equipment, but there were elements of pricing. There was the element of shipping date. I mean, one of them you can buy immediately, like shipped out as soon as the viewers could bought it. But the other one that Brooke Burke chose, they had, like, anybody buying the piece of equipment had to wait an entire month before it was shipped. And that's a huge deal if you're trying to basically get the interest of impulse buyers. And I like the fact that they took two very different routes. I mean, Carson had this very weird looking bow and arrow type of equipment that just was weird looking. Whereas Brooke Burke chose this very simplistic looking sliding board where you put on these little sliding, socks or something where you slide back and forth on this board. And they were very different. I was very worried for Brooke Burke because it seemed she was making some very weird choices with basically it was just a flat like yoga mat, which is but a slippery one with two railings on the end and some slippery socks. You would assume that's like a $20 purchase or something. She was selling it for $110. And plus you had to wait a month for it to ship. I was like, she is making a terrible mistake with this. And Carson was selling this weird bow and arrow thing, and he was selling it for $99.98, which at least is a little bit more doable, but still I felt like that might be a little high. At the end of the day, though, I think it really came down to the presentation in terms of people buying it. And I like the fact that they really went in deep with giving a lot of time to their presentations. It wasn't like they just skimmed over the presentation. They really showed all the elements of it from the producer's point of view, and also what the viewer saw on television, and saw the rating spikes and people buying it. I really liked that they showed all the elements. It was really engaging.
Yeah, I never really thought of how closely they monitor that, right? So that we get to see Matt Iseman, for example, wasn't going to be in front of the camera for this thing, right? If you've got Layla Ali and Brooke Burke, you want them in front of the camera selling this equipment, especially to housewives who want to get in shape, right? It made a lot of sense for him to be behind the scenes.
Layla Ali looked amazing, by the way.
Yes, she did.
Good on her, because she was sick, and I was like, wow, good on her. Like, I'll keep it at that. She just looked amazing.
Yeah, and when she came on camera, the sales started to spike, or the call volume started to come in, right? So Matt's watching, like, basically real time, the calls coming in, and can tell when it's getting more engagement, so they can kind of adjust on the fly. Like, oh, they really like Layla, so let's keep her out there longer. Let's get her. She's having fun on it, so let's play that up. And he's feeding them cues in their headpieces. That's fascinating to me. I had no idea they put that much effort into selling QVC items.
Yeah, and I like the fact that Matt always goes out of his way to be creative and helpful, even if we saw with Leslie, who was producing the other team, she didn't really engage much with them, didn't really give them anything to go on, whereas Matt was always communicating with Brooke Burke, gave her various ideas, and as soon as he saw a response from the call rates, he definitely let her know, and they engaged from that, which was very helpful. So once again, Matt definitely led and helped out his team, and it's hard to say, but I kind of notice, the production side of how they present on the show. And I have to say, man, they are giving Matt Iseman a whole lot of screen time, especially in the later half of the show. So I have to assume he's in the end. Now, on the other side, it was kind of a whole mess. I mean, more than anything else, they came up with the idea of selling this weird bow and arrow thing and having Carson obviously sell because he's a good spokesperson, but rather than having the mother and the athlete and remember, guys, they're selling to moms, stay-at-home moms. They had Boy George come on for a minute and just talk about how much he lost weight, but not even with this product.
Yeah.
And it was very awkward and weird. He's like, yo, look it, I was big once and now I'm skinny, and this is a cool product. Maybe I'll use it when I get home. It's like, what are you doing?
He has a great story, right? He lost 94 pounds. It was a really dramatic weight loss, and in some ways it would be perfect for this. But
if he used the product,
you almost have to be dishonest. You almost have to say, like, with this product, I lost 94 pounds. I don't know how else you do it. Otherwise, yeah, get him out of there. He should have been producing. I don't agree with them in saying that Carson should have been the producer. Not at all. I think having Carson out there makes the most sense.
Yeah.
But Boy George should have been one behind the scenes, and Leslie should have been out there demonstrating it 100%.
Mm-hmm. So once again, I mean, it was night and day. Whereas the first task was pretty even in terms of crappiness, I think it was night and day with this task. I was like, one person clearly killed it. But the thing that really worried me was that price point with this sled board, because I'm like, I would never in my life pay $110 for a slippery piece of mat and some socks. I can do that at home right now. Just go on my kitchen floor with some socks and slide right to left. But, I'm underselling it, obviously. There's more to it. But
not really.
I was like, people, yeah, but I can imagine, like, some moms at home be like, why would I buy this? But when we got to the boardroom and I heard the sales, I mean, the little sliding board that Brooke Burke sold, they almost doubled the sales of the other team. And I was floored by that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a little bit of sales. I think they said I forget the number, but it was multi-$1,000.
It was 17,000 something, I think they did.
That is insane, dude. Like,
in 8 minutes.
Good on them.
8 minutes that they demonstrated that thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm clearly in the wrong business. I need to stop being a librarian and start selling random sliding boards that,
If we can somehow loop in the whole armchair thing into an exercise piece of equipment, I think we have a top seller.
There you go, man. Yeah, we'll be rich.
If you can sit down and do your workout, that would be great. But yeah, it was a very strange boardroom after all this, right? So Carson's team loses, and he ends up firing two of them, and I wasn't sure which two he was going to pick for a second, because
me neither. Really,
Boy George didn't do much, and he was absent the week before. So it seemed like he was primed to leave, but no, he booted both Carson and Leslie. So two of our picks to make it to the final three got booted at the same time.
Yeah, I guess so. Because I was like, I didn't choose Leslie, but you did. So, yeah, what was interesting is it was hard for me because you can't really defend Carson at this point. He's lost two tasks, even though he won one. And even though he was so helpful, it was kind of like the other Matt Iseman, where he did great in a helping role with his teams. He really floundered in the past 2 weeks, and it's hard for him to have an out at this point. And he made so many mistakes on this task where I have to agree with him going, but it's so hard because he was so good before. And with Leslie, initially, if you think of, if you just hear it, you're like, why would she go? Why would she be fired? But I have to give credit to Arnold Schwarzenegger. He made a very good argument for her going, where he said, what did he say?
5 out of the 7 challenges she's
there
been
you go.
In the boardroom.
Yeah, she's been to the boardroom so many times, and there has to be a reason for that. It can't just be that people don't like her. And you have to imagine at this point, he's heard time and time again from everybody complaining about her. So, and she really didn't do herself any justice on this task. I mean, she wasn't really all that hopeful, where I can definitely understand also why he would get rid of her. With that said, we have our final 4. So we have Boy George, we have Brooke Burke, we have Layla Ali, and we have Matt Iseman. With that, Matt Iseman and Brooke Burke are 2-time winners, and Layla Ali's only been project manager once, so she has to, you have to assume, next week take a project manager role. I believe Boy George also has only done it once, and it was so long ago, I don't even know if he won his task. So Boy George, I feel like, is the big... If there's one person that's probably not going to make it to the finals, it's Boy George, just because he really hasn't been there all that much. or really showed his hand of being amazingly helpful. Although he does do well when it comes to, implementing his singing skills and stuff like that. The two big keys are, will it be Layla Ali or Brooke Burke in the end with Matt Iseman? And I find both very curious. Layla Ali, even though she's been kind of like in the background the past few episodes,
she tapered off.
She's so incredible. Yeah, she's still incredibly strong, and not physically, but she is physically strong, but she's very strong as a project manager. We definitely saw that. If there's one person that's very good in a very managerial role, it is her. And I can definitely see Arnold Schwarzenegger, you can tell he's a big fan of hers personally, so you can definitely see some personal bias there. And Brooke Burke, she's won twice. She's a very good salesman, and I think they were alluding to a little bit, because even though there's this love thing going on with Matt Iseman and Brooke Burke, obviously not real love. I mean, Brooke Burke's married and has, a family, but they're very close and friends and everything. But Matt Iseman in this episode alluded to the fact that she's very good and she's very sneaky, and he has to keep an eye out for her because she can be very, very dangerous. And they definitely brought out that whole thing where they made it clear Brooke Burke is somebody you need to watch out for. So I'm curious why they kept that in there. I have a feeling it's going to be Brooke Burke versus Matt Iseman in the very end. I would be super ecstatic if Layla Ali made it, because I genuinely thought she was going to. But I think in the past few episodes, Brooke Burke has come off so strong that it's going to be Brooke Burke versus Matt Iseman.
It is definitely looking that way. We'll see if Layla can pull it together. I think she should have insisted on being project manager this time over Brooke, even though Brooke had the more experience. She said, though, she felt like she had to, but she let Brooke kind of bowl over her there, and I think that was a mistake.
With that said, I mean, I can't complain. Brooke Burke on this task did amazingly well. In terms of selling and everything, she was great. So,
but it's when Layla came on, I mean, we're really going into way more detail than we ever intended to with this show. But really, it's when Layla came on the screen that the sales started to spike, so...
Mm-hmm. Good point. Yeah. So we'll see next week, guys. For all I know, Matt Iseman and Brooke Burke are going to go bye-bye next week, and we gave them the bad juju.
Yeah, that's possible. We did it with a few other shows, so...
We did it with Carson and Leslie this episode. So
yeah, even this episode.
That curse is still in effect.
So moving on to the National Ninja League, we actually had two qualifiers just to make this episode go extra long. We had GCA and Shinobi Fitness. So running down with Shinobi, in third place for the women, we had Karen Sabo. Second place, we had Kirsty Pratt. And in first place, we had Michelle Warnke. That is a pretty all-star lineup of women right there. And they all looked fantastic. They all did a great job. What did you think of the course and how these three women did?
I would say if you take two obstacles from any of the from this course, it would be way harder than the entire course on UK Ninja Warrior. That's what I'll say first of all.
Yeah, that is true.
With that said, very unique. I really enjoyed the obstacles. It was definitely upper body focused and a lot of hanging. It reminded me a lot of the stage 3 obstacles. I would say this course reminded me a lot of stage 3. And I don't know, it was cool to see. I really enjoyed the fact that the women were very strong in this because, the one thing we don't get to see enough women do is stage 3 type obstacles, and they really came off strong. One thing that definitely stood out to me was this balance obstacle part that they had, where they had these kind of like small little domino planks that they had to walk over, which were incredibly flimsy, and I can't believe a lot of these competitors were able to do it. And you go straight from those into PVC pipes, and there are two of them that you have to roll across, and that's incredibly hard. So props to everybody that were able to get past that obstacle. Other than that, a lot of upper body based things. It was cool.
Yeah, those little domino things that you mentioned looked really difficult. I wish they had shown somebody doing them, because we saw Kirsty Pratt go out on them, but I don't think they actually showed anybody go through them. It looked incredibly difficult. Imagine 2x4s standing on their ends, and you had to walk along the things. Really, really tricky looking. Mm-hmm. And Michelle Warnke looked very, very fit and amazing on the course. She blew past everybody. The rest of the women, she did like a number of obstacles past everybody else, proving that she's still definitely one of the top women.
And who was number 2, my man?
Kirsty Pratt. Awesome.
Oh, wait. Yeah. Never mind. I was singing the other part. Wrong course. I forgot we're doing 2.
Yes, we are. So we're going to talk about the men first for Shinobi. In third place, we had Brandon Mears. Second place, Ethan Swanson. And first place, Mike McKenzie. And I'm actually liking listing these off and doing it this way. I think we're going to keep doing it this way. So the men's side of the things, they were doing a really good job. We got to see them we got to see a little more of the course. We saw some different size balance tanks. So basically imagine like doing a log roll type thing for those that aren't familiar with the balance tanks. And they had 2 different sized ones. I think that would really trip up a lot of people. I thought that was a great idea. One thing I do want to give a quick shout out is Mike McKenzie did absolutely freaking amazing job on the rope swings compared to everybody else that was getting hung up on them. He absolutely schooled everyone on how to do those obstacles.
Yeah. I mean, this is like 3 weeks in a row where we've seen a lot of competitors have a really tough time on rope swing obstacles, where you just have these giant transition gaps from one, like a cannonball hanging thing, to maybe a banana or a various other type of ring, like transition obstacle. And I'm very curious about that, if we'll see more of that type of implementation of obstacle on the courses on American Ninja Warrior or any of the other shows, because it's one of those obstacles where it just looks very rudimentary and easy kind of from like a viewer perspective, but it's got to be way harder. And I can't even speak from personal experience because I can't really say I've done obstacles like that from like a large transition. Very curious about that kind of stuff.
I think Chris Wolczewski, who narrates these videos, does a fantastic job of kind of cluing you into what's going on. And he mentions, if you saw that hip movement there, that was to kind of reposition themselves. And here you can see that they didn't really do that efficiently. I think he really, more and more, I'm appreciating the commentary that he's providing and giving us an insight into what they're doing and trying to straighten out their body and get their swings right and trying to make these things. But there's such a vast difference between watching the people that struggle and the ones that know how to do it. They just make it look so easy. And Mike McKenzie does a fantastic job if you watch this back. He's just it just makes it look like there was the easiest obstacle in the world, when if you hadn't seen everybody else failing on it, you wouldn't appreciate how difficult it is.
Yeah, it's truly crazy, because if you were to just see that one obstacle, as you said, it's like, oh yeah, anybody could do that without understanding just how difficult it is. When they make it look easy, they really make it look easy. And I very much agree with you. It's a very good point. Chris Wolczewski has been doing a phenomenal job narrating this and really showing the ins and outs. And I have to say, with that commentary, it really helps. Like, if you're training for Ninja Warrior, definitely watch these and listen to the commentary that he's saying, because it really gives a lot of little tidbits and tips for how to tackle these obstacles. You don't even necessarily have to do the obstacles, but you'll definitely get a better understanding of how the proper technique is with these obstacles. And I very much do agree that is a very good resource that we have with these videos. Is Chris Wolczewski's commentary is absolutely phenomenal.
And moving on to GCA, for the women, in third place, we have Ileana Hunderfund. In second, we have Rachel Brown. And in first place, killing it lately, is Alyssa Beard. What did you think of this course versus the last one? Because I got to say, I was a little underwhelmed, actually, because I thought the last one was really difficult, and this one seemed quite easy.
I enjoyed the beginning of it. I have to say, and I'm guessing what you're going to say is the second half kind of just ends. I feel like this course could have been a lot longer. You have some initial really cool looking hard obstacles, and then you kind of just have to run around the entire gym and then just climb up some planks. And you're like, what? That's it? What about all the other obstacles? Yeah. We're so used to it, I think, at this point, having much longer courses, that this was kind of underwhelming in just I think the length more than anything else. I can't necessarily complain too much. I mean, they had bungees. They had this really cool hanging pipe obstacle it was two extended long slippery PVC pipes that you had to climb up connected to each other. I thought that was really cool. But, after that, it was kind of just like, run around the gym and climb up some pillars. And it was very curious why they had that, because you look at this gym and clearly there's other obstacles that they could have done. So I don't know.
Yeah, it was a very strange course. Those two obstacles that you mentioned are actually really good highlights. They were really good obstacles. The bungees where the whole rig moves looked really difficult, and then the two PVC pipes looked like they could be really tricky too. And Chris noted how slippery they were because he had done them himself and said it was quite difficult. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we had some pretty big names in this episode. We had Alyssa Beard and Rachel Brown for one. I'm not familiar with Ileana, but she has now qualified for the National Ninja League Finals. But we move over to the men, and in third place we had Mike Myers. In second, we had Joe Moravsky. And in first place, Drew Dreschel. That is some big, big names to have.
Yeah. And kind of like UK Ninja Warrior, I feel like this course was more about completing it in a certain time than it necessarily was about the difficulty. With that said, I still feel like this is more difficult than UK Ninja Warrior. But, I'm just hating at this point.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Actually, now you say it, that bungee obstacle was more difficult by far than anything they had. That is for sure. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I love that they posted Drew's full run, because it is an absolute... It's a work of art to see him.
It's ridiculous.
To see him go through this obstacle course and just pick the whole thing apart like it was just absolutely nothing. It was a wonder to behold, and you should definitely check it out.
Yeah. It's crazy when we had Joe Moravsky taking second place and running this course, and yet all we're talking about is the first place run. But Joe Moravsky obviously did amazing. I mean, as always, his technique's picture perfect and everything. But Drew Dreschel's run, just, as you said, a work of art. It's ridiculous. I mean, he was flying through these things so effortlessly, and I think that's the number one thing. He just makes it look so effortless. It was really cool. But once again, I really wish I could have seen, with such a high pedigree of competitor throughout this entire competition, I really wish we would have seen them, I guess, test it a little bit more.
All right. So that is it for our coverage of the National Ninja League. For those that don't watch Supergirl, our good friend Jessie Graff had a major role in this past week's episode. She had more than just as a stunt woman. She actually, had an actual role in the show, an acting role, and we were so happy for her, and we wish her all the best of luck in her future acting career.
Yeah, congrats, Jessie. That's really awesome, and I gotta say, did a great job.
And if you think we've done a great job, I'd really appreciate it. We've got like 1 or 2 days left by the time. If you're listening, I'm going to beg, plead. I've got no dignity left at this point. I don't care. Please, if you haven't already, please go by the Amateur Podcast Championships. I will link it one last time. The votes are almost done, and you won't have to hear me do this anymore. But yeah, if you could vote for us in that would be wonderful. We'd really appreciate it. But if you'd like to reach out to us, you could reach us at rich@ninjapodcast.com. We are at Ninja Podcast on both Twitter and Instagram. And Bijan, how can they reach you?
Oh, before anything else, I gotta say, with all the championships and everything, I feel like I should say I'm at least more than anything else honored and appreciative that we've been even nominated for the award, and it says a lot about our audience and everything else about how much this has grown over the past year. Very much appreciate that, and it's really awesome that at least we're up for the prize. Hopefully we win. If not, still cool, guys. Thank you for all the support. What were we saying? Yeah. Twitter and Instagram. So yeah, my name is Twitter and Instagram. You can find me at Bijan151. That's Bijan151 at Twitter and Instagram. Hit me up, guys. Love you.
Thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a great week.
Peace, y'all.